All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number one of the Semi-Analysis Weekly podcast. We don't know exactly what the name is or if this is ever going to be public, but we're testing things out and we're going to talk about what happened in the week that was. Today's Thursday, February 12th. We had three articles that came out on the free tier newsletter. Claude Code rising, CPUs are back, memory mania. We'll try to talk about all three and other stuff that's going on. By way of introduction, I'm Jordan Nanos. I'm here with Doug O'Laughlin and Myron. I don't even know how to pronounce your last name properly. G?
Shit, shit.
Yeah,
Do you
Shit.
know,
like
have you ever heard
thank you.
shit, thank you
Yeah,
in Chinese?
yeah.
My last name is literally that.
Thank
Is it?
you for
So
coming on this
I'm a very
podcast.
grateful person. Very grateful person.
That's pretty good. Thank you for coming on this podcast today.
Thank you
Yes,
for
yeah.
having me.
Yeah.
So is it like thank or thank you? What would the
No, it's
If you say shit, that's thank you. Uh, yeah.
okay. Let's keep it on topic. This is not transistor radio light. So yeah, let's go through each of the things.
okay,
I think
great.
first, Claude Code, bro. I don't want to talk about Claude Code. I've talked so much about Claude Code. Um, but I do want to talk about the fact that we're on the presser. I think it's like kind of a big deal. Um, it's very rare to get linked on a press release anyways, and we're on the Anthropic Raise press release. It's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, we
Yeah.
meaning you. So Doug, you made a chart that made it first into our core research product a few weeks ago, and then made it into the free tier newsletter that tracks how many contributions to public GitHub repos are, how many commits are being made, authored by Claude Code because it signs off as a contributor when it, sends a PR. So that number rate, went from like 2% to 4%. And then they included that in the announcement
Yep.
release. So like walk us through that. Like how'd you get the idea to do that in the first place?
I read a tweet where it said, "You idiots! It all says it's committed by Claude Code. You could turn this off." And I was like, "Wait, can you scrape GitHub?" And then I just asked Claude Code, and that was it. I was like, "Oh my God, can we make a daily series?" And then I realized like, wow, this is like a I've definitely been rushing inside to make sure we were the first to put that chart out because I was like, dude, anyone who's paying attention can figure this one out. Like especially with Claude Code. But I was like, we need to be the first. And so I mean, like, I don't think this is like exactly news. We're gonna definitely be publishing the data for our paid subs or like our institutional research tier. But we'll probably have some kind of public dashboard as well or some kind of public facing information. It's like already almost 5%, right? Um, at least according to the most recent one we did, it's like 4.7 or 4.8 or something like that. It's still growing. But yeah, that's how I got to the idea. Just doom scrolling, and I was like, wait. And then yeah, me and Claude Code wrote, made the chart, and then obviously wrote the article, and yeah.
How much of the article did Claude write in addition to make the chart about itself?
I don't think I personally still want to be writing with a human voice, right? We got to train these models on something. We can't just be sloshing all this stuff background. I do like it for outlining more than anything else. I think the very first round of it was I was still very excited. I was like very peaky on my excitement about Claude Code, so I dictated most of it. Then I had the dictation get cleaned up by AI, and then I kind of wrote like, okay, make a slop outline based on this, and then I wrote over it using my voice, just like manual tokens, with the fingers. And then afterward, we sent it to the powers that be, aka the internal semi-analysis brain squad, and then like people wrote in sections, people like gave feedback. At some point, I think the most heavy lifting that Claude Code did do and specifically did this all on Claude Code, like screw vanilla chat or anything anymore. Was mostly the outline stuff. I think because when you write something so much, you just get like lost as hell, and you're like, okay, this all makes sense in your weird little brain. But I'm like, hey, just do a fresh go through each kind of piece and like walk me through this. And I do sometimes have it do some editing to take. What's the least relevant portion of this paragraph? I like to usually rip stuff out. But that's just me. Sometimes semi-analysis loves to add stuff in.
Myron, are you writing with it?
Sorry.
Are you writing with Claude or with ChatGPT or Gemini?
No, I agree with Doug. I like having a human voice, although sometimes I think for certain paragraphs where I'm like, how do I express this concept? Um, I use an LLM, and it's like, okay, that's a really good way to express it. But I mostly use, as to Doug's point, like human voice. I wouldn't generate like a whole piece from an LLM. It's just like specific ideas I'd flesh out with an LLM, like, make this sound more elegant. I'd use an LLM.
Yeah, makes sense.
Maybe I'm too much of a boomer.
I think it's our last artisanal point, like it's our hand
Yeah.
churned butter, That's all we have. That's all we have. This hand churned butter is all we got. And also just like for context, I don't think people realize Myron writes so much of the bangers at semi analysis, like essentially anything accelerated. Like do you think Dylan's writing these articles? No, brother. Like it's a team. Uh, Dude, I just love it. I for like people still believe like pretty deep into like I want to say even 2024 is like Dylan, I just love everything you write. And I'm like, it's just like very hard for you to believe. It's like, okay, so we just put out three 10K report, like 5K word reports this week. It's like, no, there's like a lot of people on the author bylines, and there's definitely a lot of heavy lifting. Like obviously Dylan's giant brain behind so much of everything we do here, but yeah, Myron's like an OG semi-analysis person, and he's written some of the greats.
When you read something like one of our big 20K, 10K word bangers that obviously has a lot of contribution from various people, you can tell. Can you tell whose voice it is? Like who
Yes.
wrote this? Did Dan write this? Did Jeremy write this?
Yes, I can tell. I can tell at least. I can kind of tell.
I'm not at Doug's level. I can tell certain voices or certain uh, people use certain jargon or choose to use the ampersand instead of saying AND or choose to, you know,
There's also
reference
there's
it.
also there's also British spelling too. Like the British
Oh
spelling
yeah,
definitely
that's a big
pops up. That's a
giveaway.
Myron thing. Yeah, that's a Myron giveaway.
I'm
Like
proper on that.
Yeah,
Jeremy
Does Canada
Yeah,
use British spelling?
yeah, most of it. Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
our Prime Minister
common.
Mark Carney is like going on a crusade right now, making all of his employees use the British spelling of many common words. So it's interesting.
Oh
It's a
wow.
return back to the
So that's
the
like
ground.
the reverse of Dylan.
Yeah, the data center Centra or whatever. And then my favorite is I think Jeremy has the most typos because it's very clear everything in his entire keyboard is focused for French. Like, dude, his because it's like you think his autocorrect is gonna catch the English typo? No way, bro. Like, so like he definitely slips the most typos, I think.
So
But
the
yeah, and
other
then
thing for Jeremy is that if an entire sentence is highlighted with a link to an article, followed by the next sentence also being highlighted with a link to the article, so that
yep,
the
that
whole
is
block of text is just links to previous articles, that's a Jeremy play for sure.
yeah, that's definitely a Jeremy play. Yeah. So yeah, but there's so many people who go into all these things. It really does help. I mean, and actually I think that that's how all these articles start. Most of the article is like a 2K word thing, 1K word, and then we're like, hey, it'd be really nice if you help on this section. And someone helps on a section, and they add like 1K words, and then like each incremental thing gets added, like another like whatever 700 words, and then all of a sudden we're like, wait, this is 6,000 words.
Okay,
So
yeah,
so whenever
becoming
whenever whenever someone's like, oh, let's do a brief article on this, ends up becoming a Frankenstein.
Dude, I think I'm proud. I feel like the Claude Code one was really short because I like was
Yeah, yeah.
the quarterback, and I kind of just ran because I was like, we need to send this chart out. Like we need everyone to use our number. I needed that so badly. So definitely ram that one out.
so let me try something here and show a bit of the backstory. So just because we're talking inside baseball about how semi-analysis works right now, here's the first chart, which went out on January 20th in core research. And then here's the one that went out public. So just 2 weeks later, this one's February 5th.
Yep.
We're all the way up at around
Well,
4%.
yep.
And here's the Anthropic press release we were referring to, where they announced their 30 billion raise out of 380 billion. valuation and link to the article that makes that estimate. So yeah, just for reference there. But maybe like to be clear, there's some articles that are going to the free tier and not going to subscribers first. In other words, like the CPU article that we just kind of put out about the return of CPUs, I guess, and their importance. That is like a very different article. You know, it's like a bit of a history as opposed to a comment really about what's happening right now, or at least it leads in with history or something like that. Like,
Yeah, and I think I mean it's mostly because CPUs are history, right? I mean, no, sorry, that's
Not anymore. They're
not
back.
anymore. They're back. Yeah. No, I definitely think that people, and it's kind of like unfair being like, oh, well, all we do is focus on this like paid thing. Yes, that's our jobs, but I definitely feel like we do so much content for free. And I think the CPU article, I don't know if it ever got mentioned or written about in any kind of paid, like higher paid tier. It just went straight out of, straight out of the authors, straight to the newsletter. Same with, I think, the TSMC Apple piece. That was like straight to this to the newsletter. Yeah, honestly, Myron, do you have any kind of takes on the article other than that the CPUs are so back?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it ties into what's happening with Claude code, right? So we need more CPUs for basically RL. Uh, they're involved in the RL process. And then also with all these agents running around, you need CPUs to invoke things that are like outside the model, right? Like if you want to do a search, if you want to manipulate something on your computer, that's all CPU. And then we're going to create all this software, and what are they going to run on? They're going to run on CPUs, right? So that's that's what's really driving CPUs coming back. And and then also there's also the traditional, like what CPUs have been used for. There's host processors that run GPUs, and of course we're all like deploying more GPUs. So that's going up. So everything's happening with CPUs. Even even Intel is sold out, right? So that tells you how many CPUs we really need.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
even well,
yeah,
Yeah,
even Intel. I
if
mean,
Intel is
that's
catching a
the
bid, yeah, that
yeah,
tells you
that
things are tight.
yeah. Yeah, that's actually, I mean, that's been kind of the like, and we see this in like the entire accelerator space, right? Like the marginal supplier actually benefits massively, and I just don't think anyone would have ever guessed that, the marginal supply, like essentially that we would hit what is the largest, most like mature install base of compute CPUs, and be like, yeah, actually we're going to run out of supply, and the marginal supplier being Intel is actually going to catch a bid. I mean, it's kind of been incredible. And yeah, I think part of this story that's interesting too, in terms of like, all this stuff is some of the, I think this round though, ARM is such a bigger threat than it's ever been. And that's kind of been like the other part of the story that's like very interesting. AMD continues to crush. It's just kind of fragmenting, but the Phoenix CPUs are definitely kind of an interesting change, especially in the of like how ARM's business model is going to adapt. And that's, but even then, even with more competition, doesn't matter. Intel's still sold out, or probably will be sold out. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Just in terms of the article, did you guys see they pulled up that picture of Pat Gelsinger getting a massive tattoo of VMware on his
Yeah.
arm in the article?
Yeah, dude, I did see that. I think it's sick. I also think it's so like, you know how like gutted VMware is after post brought Hawk Tan. Like the company he has been CEO of is like, it's dead. It's gone.
There's Pat on display. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if we want to really do the eulogy of VMware right now. I'm sure it's going to continue to be used in the future. But like all of the growth in AI is about people consuming compute through an API via tokens, not by every single Fortune 500 company spinning up a bunch of virtual machines in the cloud the way it was in the cloud era. Like the growth is in the form of um, CPU data centers supporting cheap GPU data centers. They had a great picture in that article about the Fairwater campus from Microsoft, showing the like GPU building versus a CPU building. Let me throw that up on screen as well, just for the people who are watching online. Um,
I like how
yeah,
this is going to be the dummy version of these articles. You don't have to read the whole thing. You can just listen to our weekly. I mean, that's actually probably the best thing we could possibly do. And it would force me to actually read all of our articles. Boom.
are you saying you didn't read this article and I'm just showing you this picture for the first
I
time?
I super skimmed the hell out of it, if I'm being honest with you. There's
Yeah,
too much
well,
content.
I guess this is the concept though,
Yeah, we
right?
ship so much we can't even read it.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, seriously. I think there's like 3 articles going out today, like smaller ones, and like
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. It's actually becoming such a constraint for the core because like the core research weekly is like the definitive eulogy of everything like we or not eulogy, but the definitive like register of everything that we write. It's like becoming time constraining to make the table. The table is like what everyone hates the most now of the weekly. Is there like because and also because up until I think they figured this out like literally today, I watched them figure it out. You had to manually do it. Like there was no way in WordPress to essentially not manually create this table. And so in the beginning, it's like whatever, 7 or 8 things a week. And now we're like 15, 20 things or whatever. And then it's like, dude, someone is essentially just manually typing all this stuff out. And they're like, I hate the table, but the table's been solved. Anyways, yeah, that's keeping up with this is becoming a real deal.
okay.
Sorry.
Burning question, Doug. How many agents do you have running right now while we're recording this?
I have some. Okay, so I actually have I have an agent. I have an agent team going right now. Um, I have 7 in one task, and then I have some idle. I have like one, two, three, four, five, six. So 13 windows open, but I would say like maybe or like whatever. No, 7 windows open. One of them with 7 sub agents or whatever the agent team, and then like two. Well, but like 3 of the 7 windows are really the hot ones. Some of them are like I'm kind of like waiting for later.
Or star players
Yeah,
on the team?
yeah, the star players. I kind of want to get into Tmux, but I just hate the control B arrow thing. It's a pain. So I'm a boomer.
Control B is asking too much.
It's well, no, it's command. No, it's just like, but then it's like it just gets like really. And then I like it's the scroll. I don't know. I'm too much of a boomer on that one. But yeah, just 13 right now.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. We obviously the topic like that everybody's been talking about recently is the increase in memory prices, like just the absolute shortage. And I think it's kind of like been this game of whack-a-mole where you figure out the GPU supply chain to ship like whatever tens of millions of H100 equivalents per year, and then HBM, is and CoWoS capacity is like what drove that. Now where's the next like long pole in the tent? And it's kind of like everybody's turned into either SSDs, like the drives, or even hard drives, or now memory. Um, I think the question on people's mind is like, one, why is this happening, and when will it let up? And then two, uh, what's next after memory? You guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, so basically, um, again, it started with GPUs being the main driver of memory, sort of incremental memory demand, and that's mostly in HBM. Um, I think what's really different about this cycle is in the past we haven't seen a new memory product that is so much more difficult and more intensive to manufacture. With HBM, the amount of bits you get per wafer is far less than, say, conventional DDR DRAM. A few reasons, which is number one, you need to dedicate more area to your TSV keep out zone, which is the TSV being the wires that are kind of built through each stack so that you can have a vertical stack where you deliver power and signal. And then also, because of the performance rise of HBM, the performance requirements of HBM, you the yield is terrible, or much worse than conventional DDR DRAM. And then also you have to stack these things in an 8 high or 12 high stack, and you lose yield on the pack. So all in all, like you get like several times more bits out of a conventional DDR DRAM wafer than a HBM wafer. And then the more the HBM demand grows, as you ship more GPUs or XPUs, then the more wafers that the industry has to dedicate to HBM, and then that sort of reduces total industry supply bits. And then conventional DRAM is picking up because, again, like with all CPUs, you need DRAM. So that's driving conventional to be tight. And then you combine those with very little incremental sort of wafer starts, because the memory manufacturers, after the COVID hangover, they decided, okay, we're not going to invest more. So there's literally not much clean room space that's available to actually put equipment. So you can't. So like we're adding virtually very, very little supply whilst demand is moving, and that's what's causing things to be so tight. And people just realized this about what was it 5-6 months ago, and now that's driving things to be pretty whack in the DRAM market. And then similar for SSDs and hard drives. I mean SSD like NAND supply has been. I mean the NAND industry has been much worse than DRAM. I think people like half a year ago, all the industry players were barely making a profit, or I don't think they were profitable. No one added supply, of course, and then all of a sudden you have a lot of that incremental AI demand hitting, and now things have just become tight. And the problem with like NAND is because it's less profitable than DRAM. The the DRAM manufacturers are probably going to add more incremental capacity to DRAM first, before thinking about. It's going
I
to
mean,
be crazy for the next year, for a few years at least.
yeah, for a few years. I think one aspect I wanted to add on the historical side is it was literally the worst cycle since 1996. It's like the worst cycle of all time in memory. It literally was like number two. 1996 bankrupted like a third of the industry pretty much. So it's pretty much the worst of all time, and then it whips out to the best of all time. And like there was an example of last cycle that this was something that they did historically different. Is they literally shuttered machines, meaning that they were like, hey, we're just gonna stop at like not only are we gonna like usually what happens is bit demand growth rips the entire time, and they're like, yeah, actually no, we're not even gonna do supply. We're just gonna turn off supply. We're gonna just take the charges. Usually they just have underutilization charges. They're like, we're gonna save the clean room space. Like that is historic. No one has ever been. When you have something fully deployed, usually it's cheaper to just keep it on. But NAND was so bad, they're like, no. Let's try to convince everyone to turn it off because it's so much supply. So we go from that market of being like we're turning off the spigot in order for us to fix the problem to we don't there's not even a place for us to turn the spigots on anymore. And so it's kind of crazy. Like there's a giant clean room shortage, and I mean there's no other way to put it. It's historic. It's crazy to watch. I think we mentioned this in our Slack the other day, but like I want to say that memory NVMe prices for SSDs went up like 20% in a day recently. Like the prices are also going up 100%, like like month on month, and there's a little bit of panic buying, just a wee bit. But I think it's kind of crazy. This is I mean, it's definitely historic for sure.
So I I talked to some other guys about this, and somebody made the point about like expansion, right? How do you actually add more capacity? It requires the memory manufacturers to pour in some capex to build some new fabs in order to build more memory and lighten up the, you know, shortages here. Uh, you said that previously when these cycles happen, they get caught because they pour in too much capex, they build too much capacity, and then suddenly there's no buyers and the prices drop and then they go bankrupt. So then people start asking for a call of like, when's the top? When are we going to see the top in the current memory cycle? And it seems like based on history, the top is going to be as soon as Samsung capitulates and decides to start building out some more capacity because they're historically the last ones to do it after Hynix and Micron, who are currently building out capacity. And Samsung is still kind of staying with the plan and not going to take the bait. At what point do you
It's
think they capitulate and decide to actually start building out capacity here?
I
Like, how
think
much
they're gonna
more higher do we need to go?
I think they're gonna build capacity and it's still not gonna be enough. I mean, it's gonna be like I think the supply demand gap is like the largest it's ever been, and it gets worse from the work that we see. What's interesting is if you want to talk specifically on the Samsung side, in the memory down cycle, everyone was like, "Please, Samsung, stop making memory." Like SK and Micron on every earnings call was like, "Under, we really think the industry needs to stop making memory." And Samsung would be like, "No, we are going to keep making memory." And when they finally stopped making memory, everyone's like, "Oh, that was the bottom. That was like the absolute bottom, the pico bottom." And what was crazy is I think Samsung did it for 3 extra quarters than they historically have, and so I expect this to happen this cycle, but I still think Samsung's going to add. It's like it's not enough. It's just
Yeah, I
not
think
enough.
yeah, I think they want to um, add capacity. It's just there are constraints. Like they don't have many clean rooms. They need to build some clean rooms, and that's going to take time. And then also just on the tooling side, I mean, ASML can only output so many EUV tools every year, and one of the debates we're having internally is like how many between TSMC needing a lot, the memory guys needing a lot, like how many EUV tools can the industry get, and how's it allocated? Because logic is also tight.
Yeah. And you made a comment earlier that logic is effectively less complicated to manufacture than memory in the current
No,
state.
uh, no, no. Logic is
Less
probably more complicated to manufacture, especially the leading edge. But yeah.
than DRAM. Doug's on mute, but I mean, I was maybe referring to the HBM part of the process where you're doing advanced packaging with the logic and the
Oh,
memory.
oh yeah. It's
Yields
Why?
are
arguable. I
worse.
think. Yeah. I think it depends. I think. I'd say the packaging, in terms of like stacking things that are like, like stacking 8 DRAM dies on top of a base die, or 12 DRAM dies on top of base die, which is what's most common now. I'd say that's much more probably more difficult, uh, just because like if you mess up this one layer on the way, you need to like the whole thing's done. So like the cumulative yield loss of like doing something like 8 or 12 times, that really kills you. And that's something that TSMC doesn't have to deal with. Of course, they have to do like really big course modules that are difficult to yield. Um, they do stuff like hybrid bonding, SYC, which is also very complicated. But in terms of like just like doing such a high stack, like a large 3D IC assembly, yeah, it's really hard for the guys to do it.
But okay, so I wanna put some hype on the logic name. Let's not forget the another way to think about this, and I don't actually have. I mean, actually, dang, I think I came up with this on the fly. So the capex per wafer starts, right? Per 100K wafer starts has one way to keep it levelized. I think it's 2 or 3 times higher for leading edge logic versus DRAM, right? But so that would mean, hey, leading edge logic is, let's say 2.5 times. I'm vibing it out. I think we have this number internally. I have no idea off the top of my head. It's like, on me. It would be, 2.5 times more, but you can argue the 3 times trade ratio of DRAM means that logic or HBM is the most expensive per 100K wafer starts in the entire world. So yeah, I guess I remain defeated. I think HBM's the hardest.
Right. Does that affect the allocation of the EUV tools to the buyers? In other words, who's willing to pay more is the people who can make more money out of the output from the tool.
It it's a good question. I think the most sustainable thing is like because logic needs memory and memory needs logic within a system. So you want to make sure that um, everyone gets their fill so that the industry as a whole can maximize chips that go into completed systems. Otherwise, you get some weird balances. So that's a question for like ASML planning, their strategy team, and they should probably buy models uh, to help them make that decision.
Yeah, to help them make the decision, they need to buy our models. That's the right answer. Um, yeah, I think the industry itself is not. I mean, like one of my favorite parts of the semiconductor industry is I don't perceive it to be massively zero sum, meaning that like one random person is like, yeah, screw everyone else. We're just gonna gouge the shit out of whatever. Usually, what happens is a technological innovation. You give them great margins, but at the end of the day, it is about making more chips. And this memory problem is becoming such an issue where it's like, hey, we're not going to be able to sell the right ratio of GPUs to DRAM. So for ASML, the strategy plan is they're maximizing is essentially to sell the most chips possible, and so they're going to try to make the right trade ratio. But the trade ratio itself is honestly a very hard question to answer, and I don't think many people know. And all in all, like even the hyperscalers, Nvidia, everyone's aware of this memory problem. Like we got to get some EV machines into the DRAM processes. And actually, my Galaxy Brain take is it's going to pull forward 3D DRAM. I mean, it's not going to be before 2030 to be clear, but like 3D DRAM is supposed to be 2035 or whatever, right? But I think it might actually be closer to 2030 because 3D DRAM doesn't use any UV. And so that's like a Galaxy Brain way to increase total throughput of the entire system. But we're pretty far from there.
How about alternative accelerators that use no DRAM or HBM and instead go all SRAM and get the trade of 6 times more money for 2.5 times the performance? How about that segue to talk about Opus
I think
Fast and
I think that's
Codex?
like saying eggs are a bit more expensive. I'm gonna eat caviar for breakfast instead.
That's pretty good. Dang, dude.
I've
We
had that
started by
before.
saying Myron produces the semi-analysis bangers, and he just comes up with
Oh,
one on the spot here.
yeah,
Dang.
I mean like because SRAM is just like so much more expensive um, than DRAM. Um, and then if everything was like SRAM had heavy, I mean logic's already tight, right? So that's just gonna
Yeah, but we're
make
literally
logic.
we're literally seeing people go for the, caviar trade because they're not thinking about calories. They're thinking about their enjoyment of the meal, which is like Opus Fast releases with a price tag that is 6 times more than per token, and is 2 times faster, 2.5 times or whatever at the top speed. And then um, OpenAI responds with Codex 5.3 Spark, which they say runs on Cerebras, and we know that's a 10 times more money for 4 times the performance, or really more like 20 times the money for 10 times the performance, or something like that. It's an interesting trade, right? Like they're trying to do this
Yeah,
caviar for breakfast trade right now.
Um, True Galaxy Brain is that we're so compute starved that they're like, I'm gonna eat caviar so I don't die. I'm mostly joking because that's like a I don't I definitely think that I definitely think you're right in terms of Cerebrus, like really fast inference stuff and ever being like I think it's experimenting because clearly one of the issues I think with the entire token consumption model is that like okay, the fixed usage on Max or whatever, clearly that's pretty high. It's $2,400 per year. But there has to be some higher tier. Like there has to be a higher tier of pricing, and it's pretty clear. that the fast one exists, and so now it's time to figure out what that pricing elasticity curve was. Because if you think about it, they're like, hey, first we're going to give it away for free. Okay, now we're going to give away for, we're not going to give it. We're going to sell it to you for cheap, and you have unlimited usage. But maybe you can't use our best models or blah blah. It's really slow. Now we're going to give it away for less cheap, and you have even more usage. And then it's like, whoa, what if you gave it away? What if I sold it to you on the fastest mode possible, and you spent 10x? They're finding out the capacity curve, and I think that or the demand curve, the price elasticity curve, and from what it seems like, at least now that I'm addicted to fast tokens at Claude Code, it's working. I can't. I don't think I can go back, dude.
Now,
It's
now it's blue cheese, man. Now you swear you're addicted to blue cheese, man. Yeah.
yeah. No, dude. It's no. You moved me from heroin to fentanyl. That's what happened. I
No,
don't think I can go back.
this is a PC podcast here.
Oh, sorry.
PG
Okay,
rated.
Lord forgive me for my old ways. Okay. You moved me
You
from.
know, a CJ Whoopty reference. We'll see who in the audience actually understands that one. But um, okay, but bring it back, Myron. Do you think it's possible that uh, there's a need to explore alternative architectures because there's just so little incremental DRAM or HBM or logic or whatever uh, constraint
I
exists?
think there's always been that search for different architectures. I mean, back when, you know, it's funny now that HBM, at least in the short term, because of how pricing dynamics work and contracting works, the price of conventional DDR DRAM on a per gigabyte basis is actually like closing in on HBM. But back when HBM was much more expensive on a relative basis, a lot of new um, both established accelerator companies like NVIDIA with CPX, and newer companies have explored different ways of like non-HBM based architectures that that always had trade-offs, but it does seem like HBM, I mean, for for now has probably the best balance in terms of like cost, bandwidth, density. But I think to Doug's point, the SRAM based architectures like they do offer really really fast tokens. They are more expensive in terms of you get much less throughput per dollar, but I mean there's an appetite to pay, right? And that's
Yeah, yeah.
the sort of caviar, the caviar upgrade, right? It's much more expensive. It might be twice, only twice as delicious as eggs, but people are willing to pay for it.
Makes sense. Yeah, yeah. You guys see any of the other model releases like uh, see Dance from ByteDance generate videos
Can we
like
can we can we talk about Asia Model Week? I've been calling it China Model Week, okay? Because it's actually China Model
It's
Week.
before
It
Chinese New Year.
re it is. It's so, dude. I
Who
didn't
made the
realize.
call?
Uh,
Was it Dylan or you?
no, we've all been saying there's
So,
going to be model releases
yeah,
on the new. This is
No,
deep sea.
dude.
yeah.
Whoa. I was the first person. I want you to say I was the first person. I literally was well, because I read some SMCP thing on my ginormous whatever, and I was like, I bet you it's gonna be President Day for V4. That was like, but I did that in like November, or December, or something like that.
Come
And
on,
then,
every deep sea release has corresponded with a Chinese holiday.
yeah,
They put the
not with no,
then
with
they
an
go.
American holiday. No, with an American party with holiday. Yeah. It's on Thanksgiving. It's on Christmas Eve. It's always on an American holiday to troll the shit out of America. Sorry, you got it wrong. It's on an American holiday. President's Day just happens to be Monday. Okay, and it's near Chinese New Year's, and it's kind of like all bunched together.
You think the Chinese people are so aware of American holidays they're going for President's Day? Where was the Martin Luther King Day release?
Deep Seek. I think is if they really wanted to mog us, they would really cook and they would put it out on July 4th. That would be like the total victory.
Yeah,
They
they
put
would
out like
know.
a
They're well aware of July 4th, but like if there's something that comes out on Shrove Tuesday or Pancake Day or something, one of these like
hey, people have the bank's closed, bro. The bank's
President's Day
closed.
is not well known in China.
They put it out. Well, it's just the timing lines up. I don't know if it'll be actually President's Day. That's like my shitty speculation. I don't. But the problem is, there's no more. Maybe they'll do Valentine's Day as a little love poem from U.S. to China.
Yeah,
But it's on a
sorry,
Saturday.
Does Valentine's Day exist in China? Come on.
I don't
What
know.
do
I think a lot of American holidays are really frowned upon. You know, Christmas is banned in China. I don't know if you knew this.
no, I didn't know that.
Christmas is like it's definitely like moved to like it's perceived as westernization. But anyway, sorry, I wanted to go back to China Model Week because China Model Week is actually really good. China Model Week is actually really good. I feel like I'm the only one who's like hyping up the China models right now. Not the only one. A lot of people are on Twitter or whatever. No, but I feel like I've been ever since Kimmy 2.5. I'm actually you're finding me in the most Chinese era of my life because I believe in these China models. Mini Max 2.5 is really good. It's at Opus, but the price is just like it's like 1/10 the price at Opus Performance.
10 billion active parameters. It's like really, really, yeah, way cheaper. At least they're the way they're pricing it is cheaper. GLM 5 is an incredible release. You've got the Jipu guys doing this. This is like the Chinese version of Indeed or LinkedIn is training foundation models that are like hitting 70% on Sweetbench.
Yeah. No, they're really. I mean, they're really. Well, you know. Well, you say that, but Jipu just went public as an A. Well, I think they've pivoted away from that. They're now an AI company, but they started as
Everybody's
a.
an AI company. But the biggest one is Seed Dance, right? ByteDance Seed is putting out their video generation model that can generate like minute long scenes with consistent characters. So there are videos going around the internet that are like still clearly AI generated as you watch it. You know, it's not actually the guys, but it's you know, it's a scene from Sopranos that never happened or Breaking Bad or I don't know, Brad
Yeah.
Pitt fighting Tom Cruise or something like
Yeah, but but it's like consistent. I feel, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like the Sea Dance too, like hit some level of breakthrough where you're like, oh, this isn't gibberish out of 3 anymore. This is like actually really good out of 4, right? Or like Opus 4.5 where everyone's like freaking, like Opus 4.5 feels like some kind of breakthrough where I'm like, wow, like, whatever, software engineering is automated. I think at least animation done cooked. I feel like if they make C Dance just a little bit better, like you could actually just generate all video. And also I think the thing that's also notable is it is actually the vibe state of the art definitively. Like Gemini has been the Gemini team with VO and with Genie have meaningfully been ahead for a long time. And I think this is the first time in a long while where I'm like, I think it's just like total victory. There isn't like, and maybe this is just because this is in between a model release or something like that. But and you would argue that that gap has always been a lot closer in China on the video side. My conspiracy theory is they have more video data generation, like the surveillance state gives everyone better training data. But I mean, I'm not joking. It's like 10% of all. Did you know 10% of all hard drive demand is Chinese surveillance? It's a meaningful amount. During during the shutdown of COVID, it actually hurt. The Chinese shutdown hurt the memory, the hard disk drive companies extra because of how meaningful.
yeah, we gotta find that. I gotta ask you for that stat after this because when people ask like, is ICMS going to drive the future of drives, the demand for storage? And I gotta respond and be like, no, actually, traditional data storage, the training data is or logs. This is where all the storage is going for. Saying that the Chinese surveillance state is much bigger than your
Well,
KV offload would be a pretty good point, I think.
okay, so but I do think okay, so I do think the KV cache outflow is going to be a big part of the market. Like it's not going to be zero. It's going to be a
It's not
double
going to be
digit.
zero, no, but
It's going to be a double
it could
digit
only
whatever. But yeah,
it's kind of a
video
hard
wins.
call. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay,
Well,
first
okay,
of all,
go off, King.
anything that comes through the model needs to get stored in logs, and they don't throw away data right now. So that means that there's always going to be some multiple more stored in logs than there is that's going to be active KV cache, right? Okay, then you look at synthetic data that they're generating with these models, so all the output they're storing as well, which is not part of KV cache, right? And then you've got to look at all of the training data sets that come from existing sources. So every time somebody turns on a video camera, as you're saying, it gets stored down to disk. This is much bigger, multiples bigger, 10 to hundreds of times bigger than these models are in terms of active parameters, or these inputs to the models are in terms of active parameters. So yeah, it's really bothering me that everybody keeps asking, is there going to be massive incremental market-wide demand for KV cache offload that gets, driven by or demand for SSD for KV that is driven by KV cache offload? And the answer is like, there's going to be massive demand for SSD and for hard drives, and it's not going to be driven by KV cache offload.
I mean, I'm gonna push like, oh, it's a massive demand. I'm gonna put air quotes. I do think it will be double digit total demand bits over some period of time. But yeah, 100%. I'm gonna steal Myron's analogy from before. This is like worrying that we're gonna like run out of trees or something because we're like printing too many books when we're like building houses or something. Like a video just takes so much more. Video generation and images. I mean, that's like my favorite analogy, and I've said this all along. And then obviously, I feel like we were too slow on the memory side of things. Is like open up your iPhone and see what takes up most of the just see what takes up most of the memory. It's like they're gonna be like, okay, whatever, and I'll be like, yeah, it's probably like 20% app and 70% photos and videos. And like, how'd you know? It's like, because that's literally the reason why. Like, that's the single biggest driver. So when like C dance, for example, that is actually going to be a huge demand driver because it's one thing to generate a lot of videos and then obviously like give it to your user and have to share that back and forth. It'd be crazy if we're generating tons and tons and tons and tons of video. That is a lot of storage demand, and that's
How much of those generated videos do you think are going to be cached in the internal representations of the model in a KV cache? A very small fraction, right? Less than
no,
one.
no, no. I agree. It's a very small fraction. The part that's going to take the most video is actually sending it and watching it. Is like the consumption of it.
Log
Not
of the
the
raw file that was generated for the user,
yes, yes, agreed.
not,
Yeah,
not
I don't.
the stuff that's in memory that's getting evicted while the user is editing the video. This is a much smaller fraction than just the total storage of all generated videos.
Yeah, people forget there's a lot of compression going on. That's like kind of the name of the game if you think about it. But yeah, no, no, no. I feel like you've been fighting you've been fighting a little bit of war. People have been doing some silly stuff, man. The stuff
Man,
I get these days.
love an attach rate. They love an attach rate, man. How many
Well,
S's are going to go with these Rubin GPUs?
I will. Okay, it's hard to explain as a former finance bro. It does simplify your life, really focusing on
Former,
attach rates.
former
Whoa,
current
I mean,
Claude Code babysitter.
there you go. Current Cloud Code Vibe God. I don't think it just really helps to simplify. And actually, we went through this conversation where like I think a lot of people were like, yeah, 1.5 attached for like a transceiver or whatever, blah 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 or whatever. And we did like a lot of this, like a lot of work. Like we did the P times Q, we did the whole thing, we did the whole bomb, we made sure every port, east, west, north, south, all this stuff, and it's like it was 1.5 times. So there, some really powerful heuristics get you pretty far in life. You'd be really surprised. For better for worse, like I think the capex, the or at least the revenue monetization per gigawatt has been so far the cleanest way to figure out all this is because there's a lot of different ways and maybe you're off a little bit, but like it's such a big number that it ends up being directionally correct, and as long as your ratio is not like totally messed up, that rule of thumb has been winning more than like a lot of trying to be really precise. So big rule of thumbs, well, mental models, so to speak, do really crush in some areas. That's why you want attach ratio, bro. Tell me what's the
The
attach
current
ratio?
attach ratio of that people are throwing around is Jensen's comment on stage at CES, which is like
Well,
16 terabytes per GPU.
dude,
And then all you do is you pass that through to like how many exabytes are shipped from the fab every year, and you see that that's like less than 0.7% of the total, drive shipments. And so people are like, oh, ICMS is a small incremental. It's like that's the right conclusion for ICMS, but it's not the right conclusion for the growth of drive demand for everything. Like It's going to grow very much.
Yeah,
So,
100%. Um, yeah, my favorite also part about that too is the attach rate is so crazy. And if you think about it, I mean, Jensen has a good nose for saying the right thing at the right time. People are like freaking out about memory, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, let me tell you about memory. The memory that's attached to my GPU." Like he has this like really good. He's like, "No, no, no, no. AI is not going to kill software. We're actually going to have way more software." He always finds like in the same way the same way like you got to be like a man of the moment. He finds a way to bring it back to what matters to Jensen. And
yeah,
and
like
and I
the
thought that memory attached, yeah, was that.
$100 billion investment in OpenAI, we were, whoa, 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 we were invited to invest up to 100 billion. We're not going to invest 100 billion, but we might invest more than 100 billion.
I my understanding is there's definitely
Invest more.
my understanding is there's definitely a lot of what is it called? There is I feel like that deal happened because AMD. It happened afterward to like screw over AMD. You know,
The
definitely.
they made the Cerebrus announcement about the Codex 5.3 Spark, and in the announcement they include the language of NVIDIA is still the heart of what we do.
Dude, the amount of Nvidia press releases where it's like this has been done with GB200, and then Greg Brockman being like, "It's incredible of what you can do with GB200." It's like Jensen has the mouth puppet, and he's like, "Say the words, say the words." So yeah, no, dude, it's Jensen's world. We're all living it. Okay. Anything
Sweet.
else for our first weekly? This is actually very helpful. I feel like I've caught up on our own content. It's great to hear.
No, thanks for everybody for listening. Well,
Yeah.
good job, guys, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah.
Nice job, Myron. Nice job, Doc. Yeah.
Cool. See you guys.